And diving deep into I'm Still Here, this film's creating a lot of buzz, with the whole Oscar race and all. But beyond that, the true story it tells is really something.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to unpack this interview with Fernanda Torres, the star, try to get a sense of what makes this film so powerful, what makes it resonate.
Yeah.
And there's this whole other layer here, right? Because Torres, she's actually following in her mother's footsteps, Fernanda Montenegro.
Right.
Who was also nominated for an Oscar.
That's right, yeah. Amazing, isn't it?
What a legacy.
It really is. It's fascinating how this film kind of ties into a really intense period, in Brazilian history. The military dictatorship in the 1970s. Maybe not everyone listening knows all the details, but think about a time when, political repression is just everywhere. People disappearing just overnight.
Wow.
Speaking out, it could cost you your freedom.
Yeah.
Even your life.
That paints a pretty stark picture.
Yeah, it does.
So where does Eunice Paiva fit into all of this?
So Eunice's story is almost hard to believe, honestly.
Yeah.
Her husband, Rubens, was a congressman, vanished just like that during the dictatorship.
Wow.
Eunice herself was imprisoned and tortured. And yet she somehow finds this strength, this incredible strength, not only to survive, but to fight for her husband.
Wow.
To raise 5 kids.
It's unbelievable.
And even in the interview, Fernanda Torres really emphasizes this, that Eunice just refused to be seen as a victim.
That kind of resilience, it's mind-blowing.
Oh, it is.
But you mentioned that she didn't stop there, right?
No.
She didn't just survive this.
Eunice went on to become a human rights lawyer.
Wow.
Had a hand in shaping Brazil's constitution, a modern constitution.
Wow.
And she became this powerful voice for indigenous rights. She channeled her experience into creating change on a huge scale.
It's just incredible. It's I can already see why Fernanda Torres called her a great guide for nowadays. I mean, she embodies, turning suffering into purpose.
Absolutely.
But knowing all that, knowing her story, I can't even imagine the prayer Torres must have felt to portray her accurately.
Oh, for sure. And the interview really gives us a look into that. Torres talks about feeling this responsibility to get it right, to not sensationalize things, not turn Eunice's life into a melodrama.
Right.
She knew this wasn't just a role, it was representing a real person, a person who means a great deal to a lot of Brazilians.
And that must have influenced her acting, her choices, especially in, those really intense prison scenes. Torres mentioned the interrogation being really tough to film.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really interesting from a filmmaking perspective. Instead of, going for those typical dramatic tropes, it sounds like they went for a much more chilling realism.
Yeah.
The actor they cast to play the interrogator was actually known for his intelligence and intensity, so he could make that threat feel real.
So they weren't going for the mustachio twirling villain type.
No, not at all. Think more subtle.
Right.
Quiet menace, someone who can manipulate, intimidate, but in subtle ways. And this adds this whole other layer to Torres's performance, because she has to respond to that while also staying true to Eunice's stoic nature.
Right. I'm starting to see how powerful that restraint could be on screen. Because if Eunice was, really outwardly emotional, I mean, it might feel less impactful, right? Because it's expected. But her holding back, that's what really draws you in.
Exactly. You're forced to imagine what she's going through. It creates this incredible empathy. And then the fact that she does find joy, she finds purpose, that makes it even more powerful. Torres actually mentions this. She says that Eunice's story is, at its core, a feminist tale.
Interesting.
But without hitting you over the head with with an agenda.
That's a really fascinating point. It makes me think about why this film, why it's resonating so strongly right now in our world. I mean, on the one hand, we've got this global political climate. Authoritarianism, it feels like it's on the rise again, which makes the historical backdrop, kind of terrifyingly relevant.
Yeah, for sure.
And on the other hand, we're in this moment where we're demanding these powerful women's stories that go beyond, the simple tropes. And Eunice, I mean, she embodies resilience, but also complexity. She's not just a symbol. She's a fully realized human being who went through something impossible.
Yeah.
And this brings us to what I think is the most unique aspect of this whole thing, the mother-daughter connection.
Right.
Fernanda Torres' mom, Fernanda Montenegro.
Mm-hmm.
She was nominated for an Oscar 25 years ago.
For a film also directed by Walter Salles, who directed I'm Still Here.
Wow.
It's almost too perfect.
It is. It's like a full circle moment. And Torres shared this anecdote, this really touching anecdote. about her mom saying, "It's very great that I lived enough to see this."
Yeah.
Regarding the nomination, I mean, you can just feel the pride.
Absolutely. And to add yet another layer here, Montenegro actually has a role in I'm Still Here. She plays an older Eunice. Initially, she was supposed to have a larger part, but
Wait, tell me more.
after seeing Fernanda's performance, she decided to step back. She said something like, "This is Fernanda's moment."
Wow.
Which, speaks volumes about their relationship, about Montenegro's respect for her daughter's talent.
Wow, the layers of meaning here are just incredible. It's not just Eunice's story, it's a reflection of this real-life mother-daughter legacy on screen and in their careers. And that's what makes a deep dive like this so rewarding.
It really is. It's just, it adds this richness you wouldn't get otherwise. And it makes me think about how Fernanda Torres describes this role as a departure for her. She was known primarily for comedy in Brazil. She was in their versions of shows like Seinfeld and Friends, right, their versions. And she even joked about it in the interview, how the dramatic turn might surprise some of her longtime fans.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It makes her performance all the more impressive, to go from these big, expressive comedic roles to the understated intensity of Eunice.
Yeah.
It really shows her versatility, as an actor.
I wonder if that comedic background actually helped her in a way. Because to play someone holding back so much emotion, you need a really good sense of timing and delivery.
That's such a great point. It's like walking a tightrope. You go too far one way, and it's too much, too melodramatic, too far the other way, and you lose it.
Right.
The emotion's gone.
And she nails that balance, I think. Especially in those prison scenes, you can feel the tension coming off of her, even when she's not saying anything.
Yeah, what's so fascinating is how Torres talks about, the challenges of that kind of acting. Like, actors are often trained to be, very expressive, to cry on cue, to shout with conviction.
Right.
But for Eunice, it was all about internalizing those emotions, letting them simmer under the surface.
Which, if you think about it, is probably much more realistic. How people react in those kinds of situations. You don't always get to have that big cathartic release. Sometimes survival is holding it all in.
Exactly. And by choosing that approach, the filmmakers are forcing the audience to engage, on a deeper level.
Right.
We're not just watching Eunice suffer, we're feeling it with her.
Yeah. And that tension makes her eventual triumph, her ability to find meaning and joy in spite of everything. That's what makes it so powerful. And it goes back to, what Torres said about this being a feminist tale, but without that feminist agenda.
Right.
Eunice isn't trying to, make a statement. She's just trying to live.
And in doing so, she becomes this incredibly potent symbol. It makes me think about the impact this film could have, on a global audience. Now that it's nominated for an Oscar, it's a story, a history that many people outside of Brazil, they might not even know about it.
Oh, for sure. And it's doing it in a way that transcends language and culture. You don't have to, be an expert in Brazilian politics to understand the core themes, like resilience and hope. The pursuit of justice.
And I think that's what makes I'm Still Here so timely. In a world where, it feels like we're bombarded with so much negativity, so much division, Eunice's story gives us something else, a reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can endure. It can even thrive.
And the fact that it's getting recognized, on the world stage, nominated for Best Picture alongside these huge Hollywood productions, that's pretty remarkable.
It is, especially when you consider, Torres mentioned they ran a very old-fashioned Oscar campaign.
Right.
Focused on word-of-mouth, intimate screenings, not big flashy stuff.
It's like they let the story speak for itself, which, it feels very much in line with Eunice's own approach to life. That authenticity, it really resonated.
It did, and it makes you wonder, if this could signal a shift in what kind of stories get recognized, get celebrated. Maybe there's a growing appetite for more of these nuanced stories, international narratives.
Yeah.
That challenge our assumptions about, what a successful film is.
Wouldn't that be something? To see a film in Portuguese, not just nominated, but potentially winning Best Picture.
Yeah.
It would be a huge statement about the universality of human experience, and the power of cinema to transcend borders.
It's exciting to think about, even just to contemplate that possibility. And it all comes back to this one woman's incredible story and the team of artists who brought it to life.
And as we're talking about this, I keep thinking back to something Torres said about a scene that she filmed that was actually cut.
Oh yeah, the one she thought was her last day on set.
Yeah.
But then they called her back for another scene, one she wasn't expecting.
Right. Yeah. It's fascinating to hear these behind the scenes details, and the fact that it ended up on the cutting room floor. It tells you a lot about the choices, those hard choices that filmmakers have to make.
Yeah.
Sometimes even brilliant performances, they get sacrificed for the good of the whole story,
It's true. It's a reminder that filmmaking is a collaboration.
Yeah.
And sometimes what's best for the story isn't always what's best for, for the individual actor. And it also speaks to the director's vision, their ability to make those tough calls.
Speaking of the director, Walter Salles, this is actually his second film to be nominated for Best Picture after Central Station 25 years ago. It seems like he has a real knack for telling these human stories that connect with people everywhere.
He does, and it makes you appreciate that through line, in his work, this commitment to showing Brazilian stories, Brazilian talent to a global audience.
It's like he's building this bridge between cultures, inviting the world to experience, Brazilian cinema.
Absolutely.
And it brings us back to Fernanda Torres. This film really feels like a turning point for her.
Right.
A chance to show off her range after years of mostly comedy.
And she really embraces that challenge. You can feel it in the interview. Her passion for this project. She even called it a miracle that I'm Still Here has gotten this much recognition, especially since it's in Portuguese.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's still, in disbelief that this small story, this personal story, that it's touched so many people.
And it makes you wonder what other stories are out there, right? Just waiting to be told. Stories that could challenge us, move us, expand our understanding of the world.
That's a thought-provoking question.
It is. And it brings us to the part of our deep dive where we like to leave you with something to ponder. Thinking about Eunice Paiva's journey and Fernanda Torres bringing it to the screen, what other historical figures, deserve to have their stories told, celebrated in film?
It really makes you think. All the untold stories, the voices we haven't heard, lost to history.
Yeah. And those stories could be anywhere. In our own towns, across the world. Stories of courage, resilience, innovation, maybe even stories of failure, right? That teach us something.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about the impact a film like I'm Still Here could have if it inspired others to dig up those stories, to bring them to light.
It's like a ripple effect, right? One story leads to another. And those stories connect us, they challenge us, they can change the world, really.
It's almost like a responsibility, isn't it? To seek out those stories, make sure they're not forgotten.
That's a great way to put it. And maybe, just maybe, someone listening right now will be the one to find that next great story and bring it to the screen.
What a thought. The power of storytelling. It's not just for filmmakers, right? It's in all of us. We all have stories, and those stories matter.
So as you go about your day, think about the stories you carry, the stories you come across, the ones waiting to be discovered. And ask yourself, what can you do? What can you do to make sure those stories are heard?
That's a good note to end on.
It is. It's been amazing, this deep dive. I'm Still Here, Fernanda Torres and Eunice Paiva's incredible story. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope it, maybe gave you a new appreciation for the power of stories.
And who knows, maybe it sparked an idea for you, your own deep dive into a story that needs to be told.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.